It's not as if she were a maniac or a raving thing. She just goes a little mad sometimes. We all go a little mad sometimes. Haven't you?
In the early 1960s, movies like Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho were considered to be groundbreaking and controversial works of art that were not for the easily spooked. Stories like that, which tackled deep psychological struggles, paranoia, voyeurism, and even murder, were far from the horror genre's mainstay creature features that were capturing audiences at the time. The movie was based on Robert Bloch's 1959 novel, which was published just in time for Hitchcock to purchase every single copy in the United States right off the shelves of bookstores, in order to preserve the shock value of the story's iconic twist ending. With Psycho, the gilded status of classic is certainly well earned and maybe even a slight understatement. The movie flawlessly captures the individual feelings that would come with such an intense situation, and by the time the twist is revealed, you're fully bought into the dark but incredibly entertaining climax.
He was never all Norman, but he was often only Mother.
Now, why am I telling you this? Well, because despite the incredible execution and near perfect performances of everyone involved in the making of Psycho, someone, somewhere, thought it would be a good idea to create an almost shot-for-shot remake of the classic 1960 title. And the idea was to bring it into the modern era while simultaneously remaining detrimentally faithful to the original film, which was really not meant for the modern era, so it's a lot to explain, so get ready for a rant.
A hobby's supposed to pass your time, not fill it.
Is your time so empty?
Okay, so where do I begin? I don't like this movie. Psycho is the 1998 remake of Alfred Hitchcock's classic psychological horror thriller that stars Vince Vaughn as Norman Bates, a lonely owner of a rundown motel where the occasional guest will check in, but no one ever checks out.
But we do have a vacancy. 12 in fact. 12 cabins, 12 vacancies.
When Marion Crane, the initial protagonist, steals nearly $500,000 from her boss, she hits the road to avoid the heat. When Marion stops for the night at the Bates Motel, she'll be quickly dispatched, and the cops, clever private detectives, and her family join the search to find her. All the while, Norman must protect himself from the feds finding out his deadly secret. Get this, the film was directed by none other than Academy Award nominated filmmaker Gus Van Sant. The thing that initially confuses me about this movie is like, why does it exist?
Sometimes only one time can be enough.
Listen, I'm not the kind of person who's closed-minded to remakes, at all. In fact, some remakes are perfectly acceptable. But usually, if you're gonna reimagine an existing film, it would make sense to make certain artistic choices that add your own sauce into the mix. With this movie, it goes out of its way to let you know that it's set in modern day, but none of the elements from the 1960 movie were changed to reinforce this idea. This matters because part of the charm of the original film is the old 1960s dialogue and classic cinematic presentation from that era. This movie made a few small and ultimately unimpressive editing choices, but it otherwise kept the 1960s feel, but with a polished 1990s look. It just doesn't make the movie feel like it's being set in a believable world. It's like a surreal blend of two contrasting time periods. I don't know, but we're in the beginning of this video and I'm already goddamn sick of it.
That'd be a rather extreme reaction, don't you think?
And I'm not saying that this movie would have been any better if it ignored the original film, but part of what annoys me so much is that this movie clearly had potential to be something kind of good. The cast was fully loaded with talent, with Julianne Moore, William H. Macy, Viggo Mortensen, and Anne Heche, almost all of whom were tapped into their characters pretty well, with the exception of
Norman Bates. Okay.
It's a common complaint that Vince Vaughn was miscast as Norman Bates in the film, and I have to admit, I pretty much agree with that wholeheartedly. Here's the problem though, Vince Vaughn is a very good actor. He's fully capable of playing a violent, disturbed force of pure evil, See movies like Clay Pigeons or Domestic Disturbance, or even his comedic but still imposing performance in Freaky. So the issue isn't that Vaughn couldn't do the character on paper. The issue is that Vince Vaughn lacks the subtlety that Anthony Perkins gave to the character. Norman is meant to be a shy, nondescript, completely non-threatening man. He's supposed to look like a nearly middle-aged little boy, because really that's the core of the character. Where Perkins was soft, quiet, and reserved, Vaughn was just too big of a presence on screen. He demanded your attention, which in turn demands your suspicion. And with that, the twist does not hit the same way in the end of this movie. Sure, Vince Vaughn plays the character properly when Norman begins to become more unhinged, and he's definitely scary with his height and build being so dominating. But that's not the character's thing, is it? Is it, Vince?
Nope.
Also, here's something that I don't hear enough people saying. Simply, the movie does do some things well, but even the moments that work for me aren't new or any better than they were in the original film. Like, let's say I'm in the mood for something dark and twisted with a perfect score, great writing, and genuinely masterful production value. Technically, this movie checks all of those boxes, but there is nothing that this version does with the material that wasn't done better the first time around. Part of the epic tragedy that is this movie is that it's not bad because it's bad. It's bad because it's not as good as the original. And honestly, it makes it even worse.
Shut up. Shut up.
It's not a slur on your manhood. I'm sorry.
Okay, here's what you all need to know about why this movie pisses me off so much. Do you remember the iconic Janet Leigh shower kill in Psycho? Of course you do. But do you remember the first time you saw it? Or better yet, do you remember the second time you saw it after knowing the movie's twist? It was good. It was edited well, it was as tasteful as it could be for such a gruesome scene, and most importantly, it was completely shocking. Now, call me crazy, but the shock of this scene must have been the big allure when it came out in the 60s. There was nothing like that really being put on screen and delivered to the mainstream in that way. It was taboo, yet pushed the envelope in a direction of today's more hyper-violent fare. So the impact of that scene when it was done the first time was much larger because it was fresh and new. But then, to recreate the scene almost shot for shot 40 years later, when audiences were more desensitized to that kind of thing, honestly, it just plays as cheesy. Also, I hate this, but one of the few changes made in the movie are these random images that flash in and out of the frame during the kills. I think it's obviously supposed to represent Norman's illness and his lack of clarity during his crimes, but it just looks so damn silly. The edgy, abstract thing, it might have worked for Donnie Darko, but this is not that kind of story, and it really cheapens what was already a risky scene to try to recreate. It just should have been updated to something shocking for the new era. And that same point also applies to the absolutely disgusting scene of Norman spying on Marion in her hotel moments before he kills her. In the original movie, it's still clear that Norman is running his little voyeuristic jerk-off booth in his office, and it's still stomach-wrenching to imagine, but at least we don't have to hear Vince Vaughn's heavy breathing and smacking sounds of his Now, I've been pretty hard on this movie so far, but there are like a handful of things that work for me. I liked this camera movement from the opening scene, and I liked this interaction between Vince Vaughn and William H. Macy, and I love the look of this shot right here because I think it perfectly captures why the f this movie should not have been made shot for shot.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
Now, if you aren't familiar with the twist of the movie, there's actually kind of two of them. There's a scene where Marion's sister is out looking for her and she goes to the police. Now, the whole movie, we've been hearing Norman talk to his mother, and we've seen her shadow in the window. But it's here where we find out that Norman's mother has been dead for like a decade. The fake out of this movie makes us think that Norman's mother is actually still alive and he's hiding her in the house to protect actor. That fake out makes the impending reveal much more heightened when we learn that Norman has actually taxidermy stuffed his mother's corpse and has a dual personality, with half of him being Norman and the other half being his own mother.
I got the whole story, but not from Norman. I got it from his mother.
In the original film, it's quite a twist, and it makes you feel that empty pit in your stomach as the title of the movie suddenly makes perfect sense. But once again, this movie failed to deliver on the subtle elements that season the audience so that we're good and ready to be surprised by the twist. Instead, when the reveal happens, it just feels empty. Like anybody would have expected this version of Norman Bates to be a fucking weirdo, so it's really not that shocking.
Am I saying something frightening?
I don't know what you're saying.
Talking about your mother, about your motel.
Look, at the end of the day, I really just had one question after seeing this movie again, and that question is, why? Why did they remake this movie? Why did they want Vince Vaughn for the role? Why was it set in '98 if you were going to be completely faithful to the 1960s continuity? Why did Gus Van Sant want it to be this way? I really don't know. I love Psycho. I even love the sequels that followed the original movie. I find Norman Bates to be a villain that gets forgotten about in the slew of iconic killers that this genre has seen, but that's why I love him. He blends in. He's just another face in the crowd. He's someone that could get close to you without setting off your suspicions. This movie did not do justice to that, which in turn failed it in everything it was trying to do. 3 out of 10. This movie is definitely worse than you remember.
And they'll say, why, she wouldn't even harm a fly.
Hello, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me and see me okay. But in either case, welcome back to Friday Night Flicks. As usual, I'm going to put on some music for you guys. And for those of you that are just now tuning in, good evening. It's been too long. It's been 7 long days between the last one and this one. But we're here. Another Friday. Let's get some music going. Hello to everybody in the chat. Thank you all for being here. As usual, I'm going to try to get to all the pertinent comments, but we got a pretty good show lined up today, so bear with me. Okay, we got some music on. Hopefully you guys can hear the music. Hopefully it's not too loud. Let me know if it is, of course. Cartoon Man hitting us with a question right out the gate. Wants to know thoughts on the Bates Motel TV show. I didn't finish the entire series. But I did watch like the first 2 or 3 seasons, and I thought the first season was okay. I think I got kind of tired of the shtick by the second season, though. And then by the time the 3rd season rolled around, it seemed like it didn't really have anything to do with Psycho anymore. It was kind of its own thing, which is fine, but that's where I stopped watching it. So didn't hate the stuff that I saw, but I think it started off a lot more promising than it ended up being. Retro's Modern Life, sick name. Retro's Modern Life. Yes, this is a Shorty's hat. I'm assuming that means you're familiar. That's awesome. I hope that's the case. Oh, wow. Hello. Sending love from Toronto. Thank you for being here, Tony Pags. Mr. Twister. Ahoy, first time catching live. Well, thank you for being here, my man. Thank you for being here. It means a lot. We got a great show tonight. We're going to be talking all about Terrifier. For those of you that haven't seen Terrifier 3 yet, I got to tell you guys, you seem like the only ones. This movie is making money at the box office. People are going out to see this one. And I'm excited to talk about it because I also went to go see it. Oh, wow. This is I wouldn't say this is a hot take, but an interesting take from Ty Lee. I personally like Psycho 3 and 4 more than 2. It is a little bit strange, at least to me. Psycho 2 is one of it's a perfect sequel to that movie. So really cool that you're showing some love to Psycho 4. And 3 was good. 3 was really good. 4, the beginning was kind of, you know, it was whatever, it was a TV movie. Oh, yeah, cool. Okay, Retro's Modern Life. That's why you recognize the hat. I also am a skater, have been pretty much my whole life. Chad Muska was king. Yeah, he's still doing it every once in a while. Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate the love on the hat. Appreciate the love in the chat in general. Thank you guys all so much for being here. Guys, let's talk about Terrifier, okay? I can't believe that this happened because we have 2 clown movies circulating the box office right now with Joker, Folie à Deux, and Terrifier 3. And somehow, of the 2, we have a sequel to one of the highest grossing comic book movies of all time. And then we have a sequel to a low-budget slasher with a cult following. And somehow, Terrifier 3 is beating Joker to the ground. It's insane. It's definitely something unprecedented. And I think there's a lot to dig into and a lot to talk about. It's awesome. We have some Chad Muska fans in the chat. What up? That's cool. Me too. Love them. Okay, so we have some people that have already seen Terrifier 3. That's good because if you guys didn't know, we are going to be getting into all kinds of spoilers on Terrifier 3. There is so much to get into. I also want to warn you guys, if you don't like the Terrifier movies or the kind of blood and guts slasher shtick, I don't know, we're going to be talking a lot about that stuff. So I don't know, maybe tune out for some of that stuff. Ooh, Cora Gray wants to know about Smile 2, and you know, I have not seen it yet, but we have a review coming. In terms of jump scares, I'm probably not the guy to ask on that, but I will be seeing Smile 2 maybe tonight. I like to go to movies after my live streams, but if not tonight, I'll probably go catch it this weekend. My wife and I will probably go. Ray, all right, you caught Terrifier 2 in the theater. That's awesome. Well, if you liked Terrifier 2 and you enjoyed that theater experience, you should definitely be looking forward to that third one, my friend. All right, guys. So we are going to get into Terrifier. In fact, I think what we'll do tonight is we'll probably talk about Terrifier kind of from the beginning up to Terrifier 3. I've had kind of a interesting history with the franchise, with the film series so far. And I think I'm going to use this live stream as kind of a way for me to sort out my thoughts on Terrifier as a franchise. So hopefully you guys can indulge me and help guide me through this journey because we're in for it for sure. Some of you haven't seen it yet. Yeah, there's going to be spoilers. So if you plan to see it, maybe come back and watch this live, not in real time after you've seen the movie. And Ty, my man, of course I'm excited for The Monkey. One, Stephen King. Doesn't mean it's going to be good, but if we're talking source material, that's the right place to start. And then Oz Perkins, which one of my favorite movies ever is Gretel and Hansel, which was a movie he directed just before Longlegs in 2020. And that movie is stellar. I also really like Longlegs and Blackcoat's Daughter, but he's directed one of my like gem horror movies, and that's Gretel and Hansel. So yeah, I'm very excited for The Monkey. Okay, guys, let's cover some movie news before we get into kind of the main stuff. Let me kind of warm us up with some maybe some other news that's a little lighter before we get into the Terrifier stuff, because it is the Halloween season and I want to keep it spooky, but I also want to cover a few things that are maybe a little nicer first. You know what I'm saying? One thing that we have to talk about, if you guys know me, you know, I'm a big Superman fan. I'm also a big James Gunn fan. I have a lot of faith in this new James Gunn Superman DCU situation. And he released a little tease along with teasing a date for some footage for us to see and sink our teeth into. And this is pretty cool. So the image itself, this is it right here. It's David Cornsweet as Superman. He's sitting with Crypto, which is also a really cool reveal. A nice little shaggy dog. who I believe was inspired by James Gunn's actual dog that he rescued, which I think is kind of cute. And they're just looking at Earth, contemplating why the hell they're about to go through all of this shit just to save us. The people complaining about the movie. I think this looks cool. I think this would have been a more appropriate first look than the one that James Gunn tweeted out. And I know that there was a little bit of controversy. We actually covered that on a previous live show. When he released the first look image, it was unflattering in terms of the pose. Some people had a problem with kind of the lack of action in the shot and what that maybe implied about what type of Superman this is going to be. There was so much conversation around the initial suit reveal and first look image of Superman, which if you guys haven't seen it, it's been around. I'm not going to go through the hassle of pulling it up for you here, but it's been around. And if you guys remember from the live show, for those of you that were there when we talked about this, I wasn't let down by it. I just was confused as to why that was the image that James Gunn was choosing to give us. Now, I mean, it could be for any number of reasons. It's not for me to say. I truthfully am just happy we're getting these little breadcrumbs, these little teasers to kind of satiate us while we wait. But it was kind of an underwhelming situation. Now, this should have been the first look image because this is bright. This is hopeful. This kind of has a little bit of wholesome, imagery to it. You got just a guy and his dog, just a farm boy and his dog. You know what I'm saying? And that's the Superman that we need. So I like this a lot more. But the original image was not just a photo. It was kind of an animation where it was a still shot of Superman and Krypto, but you could see the Earth kind of orbiting as or just slowly moving, keyframed to slowly move. So just kind of a little bit of an animation, not footage from the movie, just another little tease. But what gets me excited, besides the photo itself, is that this means that, I mean, one, it confirms Krypto, which we knew, but now we have, an actual look at Krypto. But it also means that a teaser, some kind of trailer for this movie is going to be coming soon. And I can't wait to see what that's going to look like. And I'm going to tell you guys why. Because for those of you that are super against this movie already, that hate it, I understand. That's all I'll say. But I also personally don't relate because I am very excited. I thought Man of Steel was fine, but that wasn't my Superman movie. I think Superman the movie is still my Superman movie. And I've yet to kind of feel that hope and optimism and, I don't know, positive energy from a Superman movie, and I want something that's not necessarily grim right away. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I'm excited for this. And that image kind of gives me a little bit more hope that this is going to be a hopeful movie. And that's really what I need. That's what I'm looking for. Ty Lee wants to know if I've seen, I'm sorry. We already read that one. And yes, of course, I'm excited for the monkey. Cartoon Man wants to know if I've seen Haunting of Hill House. Of course, if it's Mike Flanagan, I've seen it. You know what I'm saying? We're especially at Joe Blow Horror Originals, but I mean anybody at Joe Blow, ask around. We love Mike Flanagan over here. We are Mike Flanagan supporters. Hope he does something good with The Exorcist. That's all I can say. All right, guys. So Superman first look. What do you think? Comment it if you have strong thoughts on it. This is the place to talk about those. But let's talk about a few other things. Speaking of the monkey, I know I talked about being excited for this. The trailer, the teaser looks pretty good. It looks interesting to me. I think it's cool that Oz Perkins is dropping two movies so close to each other. And I kind of hope that doesn't, become a detriment. Here's what I mean. I don't know if this is even a good example because it might not be, but X and Pearl being shot back to back. As much as I love both of those movies, and I love that trilogy, X and Pearl, you can tell were kind of shot. You can tell Pearl kind of had to be shot small to utilize some of the stuff from X that they still had access to, which is fine. In those movies, totally works. It's fine. But what I would like to see from Oz Perkins, and I guess what I'm trying to say is I hope the monkey doesn't just look like Longlegs with a different villain, or I hope that it doesn't have the exact same style, because Longlegs was so good and so surprising and so fun. And I think that that's kind of one that just needs to exist, you know, because there will be biters. There will be movies coming out that take a lot of influence, you know, with constant wide angles and unnerving wide angles. But I hope that the monkey looks different. I hope that there's a little bit more, some kind of, I don't know, elevated visual flair, or just a different style. That's what I hope for. But the teaser looks pretty cool, honestly. Now, another thing that I find very interesting about this is that James Wan is producing it. And this, I mean, I don't want to offend anybody, but we love James Wan over here. It's very similar to how we feel about Mike Flanagan. We love James Wan. I personally love him as a filmmaker. And the fact that he's producing this movie must mean something good, right? So the lineup of creative people involved tell me that this movie is something worth my intrigue, worth getting excited about. You know what I'm saying? Oh, look at this. Is a great name here. Fat Pat the Mad Psycho. Sick name. Says, I want to see Bizarro in the Superman movie, in a Superman movie. Yeah, that would be sweet, man. I wonder. I mean, I don't know if this would be the movie to do it, this first James Gunn movie. I don't know if, like, you know, I don't know if it's kind of a big thing to do, especially with Lex Luthor being the main villain. I think there's still some stuff that needs to be set up, but it would be kind of interesting to see the roots of that being laid down, because this might be, if this movie does well, we're definitely getting more and more and more Superman in the DCU. And I really want that. So Bizarro, hopefully they set that up, and hopefully this movie does well so they can pay it off. Satni Evilts, I'm so sorry if I'm ruining your name, but there we go. First one of the night, 15 minutes in. Do I speak German? Not really. Not well. I can say maybe a few words here and there. Yeah, Ty, I agree. Gretel and Hansel, amazing. Prisoners. I'm assuming you're asking me if I've seen Prisoners, and yes, of course I have. I enjoy it. Kind of makes me sick to my stomach, but I do enjoy. Oh, this is a nice one. Thank you to Glendale Bro 83. Says my voice is so soothing. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, and thank you for being here and relaxing to the sound of my voice. Tylee, yeah, Brightburn. I loved the idea for Brightburn, but I gotta tell you, the movie just didn't quite get there for me. It didn't quite impress me. But I mean, it is what it is. I've seen it a couple times. Something got me to rewatch it, so it must not have been absolutely terrible. Now, speaking of James Wan and his goings on, the goings on of one James Wan, he did share an image from the set of The Conjuring: Last Rites. And that is the casting chairs for Ed and Lorraine Warren, Vera Farmiga, and Patrick Wilson. Now, I think The Conjuring is interesting because the universe, the universe that is the cinematic universe that is The Conjuring, it goes outside of just those 3 movies and now 4 movies. You know, you got the Nun films, you got the Annabelle films. You got the Curse of La Llorona, which I think is included in that. And some of those movies suck bad. You know, like the Nun movies definitely weren't for me. And no offense to anybody who loves them, but I doubt you did if you've seen them. Those movies are boring and they suck. And that's interesting because the Nun was like the hotshot, you know, standout kind of imagery from the second movie. A lot of potential there, kind of wasted. But I think that it's interesting because the Conjuring movies themselves, while the last one to me was a little bit, it was definitely underwhelming, but it was kind of weird in a good way. It had like that crazy bear. I thought that was kind of cool. But I think the Conjuring movies as a whole are pretty damn good. Now, James Wan is not directing this one, but he is producing it. And of course, this is one of his many babies in the horror world. And I think, you know, I mean, I'm obviously going to go see it. If it's going to be the last one, the kind of end of the Ed and Lorraine saga, I want to be there for it. You know, even if the third movie was a little more forgettable, than the other two. Those first two movies, you got to admit, were very special, especially that second one. The Conjuring 2, that movie rips, dude. I love it. Okay, let's see if I can. We got a little challenge. We got a little challenge here from Satni Evilts. Vi kan ish es. I don't even know what I'm saying, so I'm just gonna not say it, just in case I'm about to offend a bunch of people in Germany. I don't know what you said, but hey, you know, you almost got me, buddy. So yeah, The Conjuring. What do you guys think? And furthermore, when we talk about The Conjuring, this is kind of an interesting. It seems to me, it still feels like the Conjuring universe is kind of new. And I guess it's not. I mean, if you think about when was the first Conjuring movie? It was like 2012 or something like that. Yeah, something like that. Jeez, we're getting old, boys. We're getting old, fellas. Ooh, Ty Lee. A lot of comments from Ty Lee today, so thanks for being here, brother. La Llorona was better than The Nun, but it still sucked. It was Michael Chavez to blame or the script. La Llorona to me was just forgettable. I wouldn't even say it like sucked as bad as The Nun, but I also think this is part of it. I think that the lore behind La Llorona is very scary and very interesting. Like the Mexican legend of La Llorona, spooky stuff, and I love it. So maybe I find the movie a little bit better just because I think like the source material for the concept I like a lot. My favorite Conjuring spinoff, Annabelle Creation, hands down. I think Annabelle Creation on its own is just a fantastic movie, and I really, really like it. I wish Creation would have been the first Annabelle movie. Know what I'm saying? That would have been cool. I'm not going to translate that because I just don't know what I'd be saying if I did translate it. So I don't want to be rude, but what the first Conjuring movie was not boring. It was not. Now, I also want to say shout out to Kevin, who asked the last question. Kevin Fraser, shout out, buddy. Kevin made the thumbnail for this live stream. So if you clicked on it because you liked the thumbnail, well, shout out Kev. Man of the hour, every hour, if you ask me. Let's see what other movie news we got before we get into Terrifier. I do have a lot to say about the franchise, kind of a lot to go into about the third movie specifically. Let's just get into it. Let's just do it. Let's just fucking do it. This is my show. You know what I mean? Tony Pags is. I just wanted to draw some attention to kind of close off the Conjuring topic. I so agree with this. The character of the nun, I still. Maybe they could save it by putting her in another movie where she's good again, and then trying another spin-off film for her after that. Maybe that would be the movie. Maybe not. I don't know. But let's talk about Terrifier. Okay. I'll briefly kind of go through my history with the franchise because I want you guys to understand the attitude I went into this movie with. You know what I mean? And Terrifier is kind of a polarizing, property. So kind of important to me that I set up myself to kind of unload this with you guys. So Terrifier and Art the Clown as a franchise. So for those of you that don't know, this started off, I believe it started off with the segment in All Hallows Eve, or it was the short film, but I believe it was the All Hallows Eve segment first, which turned into the short film, and then Terrifier, which is the kind of the first one that everybody knows. Terrifier 2, now Terrifier 3. It's really the trilogy I'm interested in. Why? Because I haven't seen All Hallows Eve, so I don't know. I've only seen the 3 movies, and I'll get to it eventually. I'll get to All Hallows Eve. I've heard that there's some okay segments in there, but I've also heard that the Terrifier segment is the best of them. So I don't know. So I'll get to it when I get to it. And to answer your question, Alistair Campbell, did I like last year's Cobweb? Anthony Starr is a creepy father. It was a good holiday. I loved Cobweb. I love Lizzie Kaplan. I love Anthony Starr. Between those two and it being set in Halloween on a house that has a pumpkin patch in the backyard, that was my shit. And I loved the movie. I was not disappointed. But yeah, so my history with Terrifier, with Art the Clown, when I saw Terrifier, which was the first thing I saw in regards to this franchise, it was one of those things where I have a friend, my friend Sarah. Shout out to Sarah if you see this. She recommended the movie to my wife and I. I don't know if she really recommended it as much as told us about it. And this is when it was on Netflix. It was like just a random scary movie on Netflix. And this was also before everything on Netflix was a Netflix original, you know? So like you could still get some of those like Dusty Decks movies. And so we sit down, my wife and I, we sit down on the couch, ready to go. This is probably 2019, I want to say. Maybe 2018, I don't know. So we sit down on the couch, we watch it. Obviously, if you've seen the first Terrifier movie, you know it's not really a narrative type of thing. It's more of like a well shot kill montage with emphasis on the potential for this very creepy character design who does these very sadistic things. And kind of the movie was just, you know, we probably heard this phrase before. The movie was a proof of concept, essentially, right? I was trying to avoid saying that so that it didn't sound like I was just saying the same thing you've heard before. But the point is, the movie was a proof of concept. And to be fair, even though most of the people I know didn't quite fuck with it at the time, I think it's now one of those movies that people go back and appreciate because there's more lore established in the world. But I liked it the first time I saw it, you know? I watched it as kind of, it was late night. I'm on the couch, probably ate a couple edibles, you know what I mean? And I enjoyed kind of just the vibe of the movie. And it is very much the kind of movie that you vibe with or you don't, you know, but it's solely reliant on just kind of whether or not you can go along with it, because it's messy in terms of like the gore, the blood, the guts, and there's no characters to really cling to. It's more like you're just watching this slow moving clown just to see what he'll do, and then he does the worst shit imaginable. And you feel kind of sick, and you feel bad about yourself for watching it, but there's a little bit of a riveting aspect to it as well. And I connected with that. When I saw it, I kind of felt like I like this dirty kind of super high contrast, blackout blacks, blue, you know, just weird color grade or like super high contrast color grade and graininess. And it just felt grimy and gross. And something about that to me was the perfect escape at, you know, 1 o'clock in the morning on a random Friday night. When I'm a little bit stoned on the couch, and it worked for me, and I enjoyed that. And so after I saw the first one, I was like, well, that's something interesting. And the question then became, do we as a horror movie community want more from Art the Clown? Would we pay to go see another adventure following this antagonist? And the answer was a resounding yes. Everybody was good to go. We were all game for more Art the Clown. And out of that came the craziest birth of a horror icon since Ghostface. In my lifetime, I think Ghostface kind of represents the slasher era of the 90s, you know? And that's the era I grew up in. So for me, Ghostface is kind of like one of the most iconic horror villains, you know, of all time. Of course, you have your classics. You have your Freddy's, probably my favorite. You got Michael Myers. You got your, you know, Chucky's. You got your Pinheads. You got your Victor Crowley's. But to me, Ghostface was always kind of like the modern, you know, kind of the modern classic, you know, the new slasher classic. And then Art the Clown, after one movie hits Netflix and then, you know, near 3-hour saga of a second movie, Art the Clown becomes an absolute smash icon. And it's weird because Terrifier 2, you know, came out, what 2 years ago now? And I hope it's only been 2 years or else time is going by way too fast. But this year, you go to Spirit Halloween and everything is Art the Clown. I mean, everywhere you turn, the carpet is fucking Art the Clown. You look up at the wall, the costumes are Art the Clown. The glasses are little daisies, you know, or little sunflower glasses, like from Terrifier. There's Art the Clown animatronics at Spirit that you can purchase, you know. And first of all, I love that because I think Art the Clown is a very scary, very cool looking horror movie character. But it is kind of unprecedented because, I mean, Terrifier arguably was not so much a movie as kind of an extended, test footage, really good, but, I'll call it what it is. And then Terrifier 2 comes out, and it's this saga. It's this ballad of good and evil. And it introduces Sienna, one of the coolest characters, in the entire franchise, the coolest next to Art, in my opinion. But that somehow set him on this path to being a ridiculously recognizable horror movie villain. And these movies are low budget, high effort, great movies in terms of the technical filmmaking, with the budget they have, with the practical effects, with the casting, all great work. But they're these aren't blockbuster films. This isn't Scream. This isn't some pop culture teen blockbuster with Drew Barrymore in it, or whoever, or Sydney Sweeney for today's world. God bless those movies. But all I'm saying is Terrifier is an underdog in all of that, and it is coming up to be one of the biggest franchises of our time in the horror scope, and that's crazy, and it's so cool to see. Gorilla Strong, sorry for the rant, by the way, guys. I just getting talking about it, but there's a twist. Gorilla Strong says, you liked Clown from 2014. I also thought that movie was pretty good. Very fucked up, that movie was. If you guys haven't seen Clown 2014, it's fucked up, but it is good. It's good. Okay, let me get caught up on some of these comments, my dudes. Thank you guys all so much for chiming in here. Alistair Campbell says, I'm not into the Terrifier franchise, but I'm watching and listening. It's the clown. I hate clowns. They freak me out, especially scary clowns. I'm out. Can't do that. Nope. LOL. Well, Alistair, then I appreciate your bravery and your courage for even listening to this stream, because it is going to get fucking clowny up in here, my good man. Now, I love clowns, especially as a horror movie thing. You got Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Who doesn't love that? Everybody gets off on it. It just is what it is. You got Pennywise. To me, probably my favorite supernatural horror being. I love Pennywise and all the shit that comes with it. So what I'm saying is there's no shortage of clowns. If you don't like clowns, Terrifier is probably the most scary for you, because holy shit. To see a clown do some of the things this guy does, it'll ruin your brain for sure. But I like clowns. I appreciate clowns more than anything, So here, I'll put some B-roll so you guys have something to look at. Here's just some B-roll from the first one. Grand Admiral Thrawn says that Tim Curry was the reason most of us hate clowns. Kiss me, fat boy. That's my Tim Curry Pennywise impression. Y'all float too. The It miniseries. Good stuff, man. I will say I love Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise. It Chapter 1, 2017. Easily in my top 5 horror movies of all time. Love it so much. Made a real fan made me a real fan of Andy Muschietti. Haven't quite been satisfied with his work ever since that movie, but Powder Keg quoted me here. Clip this. I appreciate clowns. Thank you for that. Isolated from the rest of that sentence, I realized that is a funny quote, and I probably sound like an idiot. Captain Spaulding is Gorilla Strong's absolute favorite clown. Don't you like clowns? Yeah, who doesn't love? Rest in peace, Sid Haig, by the way. This time of year, definitely never going to be the same without Sid Haig. Now, here's just on that topic for those of you that don't know, Captain Spaulding. We're talking House of a Thousand Corpses, Devil's Rejects, and 3 from Hell briefly. Great scary clown. I love House of a Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects. I know those movies also aren't for everybody. I love those movies, especially this time of year. Guys. Terrifier is good stuff. But then, okay, so I saw the first movie and I was really into it. Okay, but then what happened when I saw the second movie? I didn't really know what to expect. Now, I do like the second movie probably the most out of the entire series. But at first, I was not one of those people. At first, I did not like it kind of at all. So I saw it under, not the best circumstances as well. I watched it like on my laptop when I was kind of like on the go. And it's a long movie, so I didn't watch it all at once. I kind of chunked it out, which I think was also a mistake. Because rewatching it since, I've grown to really like the movie. And in that, it's definitely one you want to watch and consume all at once. Because if you take a break from it and then come back to it, you almost feel more exhausted by the end. So that was my bad. But for like probably, I don't know, probably like half of the year after I saw that movie, probably a cool 6 months after I saw that movie, I was walking around thinking, nah. I liked the first one. I liked the potential, but then it went somewhere that I wouldn't have gone, and I thought I wasn't going to love it. Over time, I'm a rewatcher. That's something I do. I rewatch movies all the time, especially if the first time I see one, I don't like it. I try to rewatch it one more time just to see why, unless it's like egregiously bad, like unless I do it for fun, I might not watch Madam Web again. You know what I mean? Whoa. Hey, thank you so much, Gorilla Strong, for the super chat, man. That means a lot. Thank you so much. I'm going to leave you pinned up here for a little while. Let's give a round of applause. Gorilla Strong, you came through for us, my friend. Thank you so much for that. So initially Terrifier 2 wasn't my thing. I thought, Sienna was cool. I actually didn't even mind that it got a little bit weird in terms of like the mystical stuff. Mystical is the best way to call it in my opinion. But for some reason to me it just lacked. It felt a little too indulgent, and I think that was the beef I had with it the first time. Was I watched it in pieces, which made it seem longer, and then I started noticing all of what I considered to be the unnecessary stuff, and so it started to feel like almost like a Snyder cut version, just Damien Leone's way of going, if I never get to make another Terrifier movie, I'm going to do everything in this one movie, which I did not like at the time. But watching it from start to finish without pausing it and doing something else and coming back to it and just kind of sitting with it and isolating it from my expectations, the movie is fun. And it's not only fun, it's probably, to me, the most rewatchable Terrifier film, because the first one, while I like it, I would say the first one, has rewatchability in some ways, maybe not in any obvious ways. But the second one, if you like this kind of thing, and the whole franchise really hinges on whether or not you like these kind of grindhouse exploitation films, that are reminiscent of like 70s and 80s low budget cinema, but that's very much my thing. That's kind of, it's one of my wheelhouses when it comes to movies. So I'm into that sort of shit. And as a result of that, the second movie's rewatchable because it just gives you all of the indulgent, crazy shit that you love about slasher films. The bedroom scene, it's commonly referred to as the bedroom scene. To me, I call it like the face acid scene. You know what I mean? In Terrifier 2. First time I saw that movie, I was like, this is going to be my standout scene. I'm going to remember that scene for the rest of my days. And sure enough, I've seen Terrifier 2 probably 4 times. Maybe like the 4th time doesn't count. Maybe I like half watched it or something. But I've definitely seen that scene more than 4 times, more than the amount of times I've seen the movie. And I think it just is a representation of the amount of good practical effects you can get away with on a low budget. I mean, the movie, it's still millions of dollars, but low budget film. And the effects in that scene alone, I mean, the whole movie, all 3 of them, but the effects in that scene alone, incredible. The performance of the actress, who actually makes a comeback in Terrifier 3, which I can't wait to talk about. It just, I think now watching Terrifier 2, the reason why I would say it's probably my favorite Terrifier movie, I think the reason for that is because that movie, over time, watching it has just made me appreciate how much you can get away with on a low budget if you just have the patience and the guts to try it. And it's inspiring. It's super inspiring to see stuff like that. Now, that being said, if you hated the first Terrifier movie because of how disgusting it was, I wouldn't recommend 2 or 3 to you at all. If you really got turned off by the blood and guts of the first movie, like, because, you know, some people didn't like the first movie because there was no story, there was no narrative, there was no lore, there was no explanation, there was all questions, no answers, just carnage and fun. I like that, but some people didn't like that there was no substance, no story. If you didn't like that, you can still check out Terrifier 2 and 3 because there's a great story being told there. If you didn't like Terrifier 1 though because it had nothing to do with the story, but you didn't like it because it was bloody and mean and disturbing, the second movie is a lot more of that, and the third movie is all of that. It's all that shit, dude. And we're going to be talking about it. In fact, I can't wait. So you guys, okay, you know my stance now on Terrifier 2. Didn't like it at first. I didn't like the little girl, the little girl clown. I didn't get that. I didn't appreciate it. I felt like every time she'd pop up, I'd roll my eyes. Again, over time, I grew to appreciate just about every aspect of this movie. I think the cinematography, the color grade, the performance of David Howard Thornton. I mean, the movie's great. It's a fun Halloween time flick, my dudes. But let's talk about Terrifier 3. This is really what we're going to talk about.
You survived the most famous serial killer since Jack.
Put the music down here so that we don't get hit with a copyright. Dude, Terrifier 3. Where do I start with this movie? First of all, shout out to Damien Leone. Shout out to Chris Jericho for being in this movie. David Howard Thornton, Lauren Levera. These people made one hell of a Christmas horror movie. Okay. And it's fucked up stuff, you guys. It's fucked up. If you saw the trailer and thought, oh, this one is going to be the bloodiest one yet, you're dead right about that. This one is the bloodiest one of them all. In fact, knowing that there's going to be a Terrifier 4, which we talked about last week, knowing that there's going to be a Terrifier 4, I'm very curious as to what the hell they plan to do to outdo themselves. Kind of reminds me, if you guys have seen Terrifier 3, there's a Terrifier 3 jingle. It's like a Christmas song. And there's a part where they're like, Art is searching for ways to outdo himself. And I think that was I think that was just the perfect line to sum up my curiosity for the next movie. Okay, so here's my deal with Terrifier 3. Here's the setup for me. I was looking forward to this, being that I now am a fan of the series. I like the first movie, and I've grown to really like the second movie. So I was excited to see it, but here's the detail I left out, the twist. I didn't watch the first movie alone. I watched it with my wife, who hated it. Completely hated it, wanted to erase it from her mind as soon as she saw it. Now, keep in mind, my wife, she loves movies, probably as much as I do. But it's these kinds of movies, these grindhouse movies that are light narrative, kind of all killer, no filler, not even a character. She doesn't like those kinds of movies. So the first movie did nothing for her. So when I saw the second movie, I watched it alone over time on my laptop, and I knew my wife ain't gonna like this second movie. She hated the first one. She's gonna hate this one too. So I didn't recommend it. But then the third movie comes out, and I go, I really want to see this movie, but God damn it, I don't want to see it alone. So my darling wife, shout out, she decides, okay, I'm going to go with you. I know I'm not going to like the movie, but I love going to the movies, so I'm going to go. We go see it. I knew I was doing this live stream, so I was like, I'm going to go. I'm going to take this very seriously. I have to absorb the movie for what it is because I'm going to have to talk about it for an hour. Last night we go to the movies. I sit down. I heard some rumblings about the opening scene and that it was really pushing the envelope. And I knew that my wife wasn't going to like that, especially knowing that it was kids involved. And sure as shit, the opening scene comes on, and it just kind of gives you the idea that this movie is going to take you to some dark places, some stuff that you're not supposed to see. This movie's going to take you there. And I think I mean it when I say this, guys. I think it started off pretty brutal, and it only got more brutal from there. I think the opening scene pushes the envelope because it involves children, But if it wasn't children involved, it was just an adult, still pretty gross, not nearly like some of the other shit that happens in this movie. Okay, I'll play a little bit more of the trailer. I don't want to, you know, I'm gonna spoil the movie either way, so I guess it doesn't matter. But I want to give a proper warning. I'm gonna talk about everything in this movie. I'm gonna talk about everything, you know, that you guys want me to talk about in regards to this movie. I'm not gonna hold anything back. So if you really don't want to be spoiled, there will be full on. We're gonna be talking some stuff. Okay. Now let's just first talk about the blood and guts, right? Which is kind of the thing that everybody thought, like, if this movie's gonna be anything, it's gonna be intensely gory, and it was. I'm talking practical effects as good as you've ever seen them, and I don't mean in the Terrifier franchise. I mean practical effects as good as you've ever seen them in any movie. They are so good in this movie. Everything looks so, I would say, real, but the truth is I don't know what a skull looks like when it's, I don't know when the skin has been removed. I don't know what that would look like, but what I do know is this movie makes it look like it's really happening, and it's disgusting. Whew. And then it just keeps going. So the story of this movie, it kind of bounces around a little bit in the beginning between immediately after the events of Terrifier 2 and then 5 years later. So the main storyline is 5 years later, just with a few flashbacks to kind of explain what's been going on for the last 5 years. Sienna has been in and out of psych wards for the last 5 years, dealing with the trauma of surviving Art the Clown. Her brother, John, is in college now, and he's got, you know, his own college roommate, and his college roommate has this podcast about true crime, and she just wants to interview him and interview Sienna all the time. And so that's kind of like a, I don't know, it's a small plot line that kind of gets resolved at some point in the movie, if you know what I'm talking about. And so Sienna, where the movie picks up with her, is she's getting out of a psych ward, hopefully for the final time. Her uncle is picking her up and taking her to stay with her uncle, her aunt, and her little cousin, who is like, I don't know, like 10 years old and loves and looks up to Sienna and doesn't really know anything about the Art the Clown stuff, right? Sienna's dealing with some trauma, so a lot of the movie is kind of her in her head about knowing that it's not over and knowing that what happened in the last movie is inevitably going to happen again, but also having the added layer of nobody really believing her and nobody really knowing how to deal, you know? And it's not that like her family doesn't care. Her aunt and uncle, they seem to care, but they just don't know how to help her, and they don't really believe that this clown is coming for her, you know? So it creates a little bit of a problem. Jonathan, of course, can't deny that some crazy, what I would call fuck shit, went on. But he also kind of is aloof about the whole thing, thinking it's not going to happen again. We just got to move on and forget about it. Well, of course, Art the Clown. It's now Christmas time. Here's what was going on with Art the Clown. So he hibernated for 5 years with, I believe her name's Vicky, you know, with the fucked up face that births his head at the end of Terrifier 2. And she's a very fun character in this movie. But the two of them, they escape the psych ward. It's a really funny scene where Art's decapitated body kills a cop and then takes his head and then uses it for him and like as his head for him and Vicky to get on a bus and kind of begin their journey. And there's also some funny moments. There's like a little bit of levity in this movie that felt good, you know, felt really like, I don't know, really like a breath of fresh air during a very otherwise gross movie. So Art just kind of inexplicably hibernates. He just goes up to the attic of his workshop and sits in a chair, looks out the window, and just stares for 5 years, letting cobwebs kind of appear on him. And Vicky climbs into a bathtub with a broken piece of glass from a mirror that she broke because she's ugly as fuck. No, well, that's kind of her words, not mine. She said that about herself. And she just kind of sits in this bathtub full of her own blood. 5 years later, some like I can't remember what it's Iron Gate's like. It's like a demolition crew or something. They're going to like bulldoze the property, and they uncover Art after 5 years. They wake him up. I'm curious though. This is kind of one thing about the movie. If you guys have seen it, please chime in the comments and let me know. But I was curious as to, would Art have just been there for like, would he have ever woken up if nobody woke him up? Like, you know what I mean? Was he specifically hibernating for 5 years and he would have woken up anyway? Or was he just going to sit there until somebody came along and woke him up? Like, if it happened, like, if he fell asleep in there staring out the window like that, and then the next day, like a bird flew in and woke him up, would he be awake forever again? Or would he be like, no, I need 5 more years to chill? I was a little bit curious about what was going on with that. I know that that's not in any way what I'm supposed to focus on, but I couldn't help but find myself wondering, why 5 years? And did he wake up because it's been 5 years, or did he wake up because someone woke his ass up? Either way, huge mistake, because the demolition crew gets there to wake them up. And I would say, to me, the most disturbing scene of the movie is this scene in the movie. Keep in mind, this is, I don't even know. We're probably not even not even done with the first act of the movie yet. First third of the movie, this happens. But he gets woken up. It's 5 years later now. Art gets woken up by this demolition crew, and so does Vicky in the tub. And Art attacks the guy who wakes him up, as he does. And at first he's just kind of throwing him around, you know, like it's a bar fight in a Western. He's just kind of like throwing him around the attic. While Vicky brutally stabs the other guy in the neck, you know, and you get a nice little explosion of blood out of his neck. But then the really fucked up stuff happens. Now, I want to say, for any of my family that is watching this live stream right now, I love you. And I'm sorry that you're about to hear me say these words. But things get really fucked up. And what happens is Art starts killing the guy that woke him up. And what he does is he grabs a box cutter and he kind of slices a mohawk into the center of his head. And then he rips his head and face and skin in half, just, and kind of sheds the guy's head of its skin. And it's gross. It is disgusting. But that's not the disgusting part of this scene. And for those of you that have seen the movie, you know what I'm about to say, and you know why I'm putting off mentioning this, and you know why I had to apologize to whoever I'm related to that might be watching. But what happens is Vicky sees Art doing this disgusting, scary crime, and she takes the piece of glass that she just murdered a dude with, and she starts doing herself with it. And it is what it sounds like. If it sounds like I'm saying what it sounds like I'm saying, that is what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? And it's not just like an implied thing. No, they show you what's going on and what's coming out of there when a piece of broken glass is. It's disgusting. It's the most fucked up thing. I can't believe, you know, some people would say that cutting off the limbs of somebody excited to meet Santa, you know, a small child excited to meet Santa in the first scene of the movie, some people would say that's where the movie crosses the line. To me, it took, you know, 30 minutes, but where the movie really crosses the line is that fucked up shit, you know, because that's, oh man, it was gnarly. And it goes on until it's over. You know what I mean? Not good. Although I did like the little, after all of that happens, Art looks up and goes, which I thought was kind of funny. So yeah, the movie is kind of just, ultimately what it's doing is it's saying, don't get comfortable for more than a couple of minutes, because if you do, we're going to try to make you vomit. And almost vomit I did a couple of times. And the kills just kind of continue. So Art goes on to meet Santa Claus. You know, in terms of the story of this movie, he's trying to find Sienna and finish the job. That's what it is. It's a Halloween 2 kind of situation. Sienna's the one that got away. He's back. And he wants to settle it. So he goes and he finds, remember, it's Christmas time. And he walks past a bar, and it's actually a really funny scene. He sees like a mall Santa, like you know, just a dude in a Santa suit. Sees him at the bar. Really funny scene. He gets all excited. Conway, thank you for being here. Welcome. You missed some you missed some rants. You definitely missed some rants, my man. So yeah, he meets Santa. The scene's really funny. Basically, he is excited. He thinks he's meeting Santa Claus. And David Howard Thornton, because he's nonverbal, this performance, Art the Clown doesn't talk. So David Howard Thornton had to convey all of that excitement and disbelief and like childlike jovialness. he had to do all of that with his face and his eyes, and he does. It's hilarious. He gets so excited to meet Santa Claus. The guy who's, in the Santa suit starts off, he's a pretty nice guy. He's like, hey, everybody gets the full Santa experience, so I'm gonna and whatever. Well, Art spits liquor in his face, pees on him while sitting on his lap, stabs him, shoots him, and then liquid nitrogen, freezes his face with liquid nitrogen and rips his beard off like a scab. Mind you, that's after all of the nasty shit that I just told you about from earlier in the movie. We're not halfway done. And this is happening there's intervals. Every 5 to 8 minutes, some crazy shit, like I keep saying, some fuck shit goes on like this, okay? Again, if you like these kinds of movies, you're gonna love it. It's gonna be ooey and gooey, okay? Now, the Santa Claus scene, to me, one of the best scenes in the movie, only because also it's not just how gnarly it was, and it is gnarly. I mean, like, he really fucks Santa up. He freezes his legs and hands and kind of like cracks them off and breaks them. It's disgusting. Yeah, Daniel Roebuck, by the way, Daniel Roebuck played Santa. Pretty awesome. And what's the name of the other guy that was at the bar? He's in like everything. I love him. But yeah, Daniel Roebuck, awesome. Now, it's fucked up what he does to Santa Claus, but once he gets his hands on a Santa suit, it gets even more fucked up somehow. He goes to a mall, pretends to be Santa, runs into Sienna, pretty scary stuff, and then he blows up the mall with bombs that he hands out to children like they're presents. Yes, Clint Howard. Thanks, Mike. Clint Howard is also in this movie. Excellent scene. He's amazing. I love him. Yeah, the ice cream man. That's who he is. So Vicky and Art, they're on the run. They're just slaying people. They're blowing up the mall. They're decapitating demolition men. They're de-bearding Santa Clauses. They're peeing on people. It's disgusting. But they finally get to Sienna. And I got to tell you guys, between all the kills, I think this movie has to have more kills than Terrifier 2. I think Terrifier 2 had like over 20. This one definitely has more than that. Definitely. Most of them are on screen. They savor a few, for a long time. They're very indulgent on some. So some of them are off screen, but not a lot. And holy shit, man. The final sequence of this movie is nuts. So Vicky kind of becomes like the leader of the two of them for this final piece. She's the one at least who's talking. So she's got the biggest scene stealing moments of the ending of the movie. But they find Sienna. They possibly have killed Jonathan. They say he's dead and that his skull was in this like jar that they showed her. And I don't know if I believe that they actually, because at first they show her this skull. They kidnap Sienna. They tie her to a chair. She's in her house. They kill her uncle. And it's gnarly and gross. They kind of do this tableau of like a religious thing. I don't want to get too much into it. It was crazy, man. And then they tie Sienna to a chair and they tie her aunt to a chair. And then they show her this skull that's in a jar. And they go, this is your daughter. It's Sienna's little cousin. This is her skull. We killed her. And it's fucked up because the mom is, obviously tormented and disturbed by that. Then they go, we lied. It's actually not your daughter. It's Sienna's brother, Jonathan. But we don't see Jonathan. He's barely in this movie. So I don't know if he actually died. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I'm convinced, or it might have just been someone else's skull. Well, anyway, what it really comes down to is Sienna gets her hands on the sword from the previous movie, which there's a little bit of a, like they show kind of, there's a little bit of a journey to get it, and the cousin gets it. And Sienna opens it, And now what we have is a standoff. It's Sienna versus Vicky and Art. And she takes care of Art kind of as soon as she gets her hands on that blade. She just jams it into his neck. He's out for like a few minutes. And then we get a lot of good dialogue with Sienna and Vicky. And by this point in the movie, you know, you had the crazy, by the way, we'll talk about the shower scene a little bit before the end of this. Whew. But, you know, you've seen, there's just been nothing but carnage and characters that we barely know just getting slaughtered, just cannon fodder, getting taken out for our enjoyment, our entertainment. But now it's personal because Sienna and Jonathan, those are the characters we care about. From the second movie, I mean, like those are, you know, it's them. They're the Sidney Prescott and Gale Weathers of this franchise. You know, they're the survivors that are supposed to always make it. So we care when Sienna's about to square off against Vicky and Art, and that is a brutal fight. Now they do kill the aunt in a very foul way. They kind of do. You guys remember in the Fast and the Furious, or in the second one in Too Fast, Too Furious, where they like put the rat in a bucket on the guy's belly and they blowtorch it so that he'll like kind of like dig into the guy's belly. They did that basically. They just put a giant glass tube in the ant's mouth and then they like break her jaw to make it fit, and then they put a rat in there and burn it so that it burrows down, and then they cut her and the rat it's disgusting, man. It's just so fucking like saying it makes me feel like I feel like I shouldn't be saying these things. You know what I mean? Even to describe what I saw feels bad, but fun. And I walked away pretty stoked. So the way it finally, like, you know, goes down, Sienna's cousin gets like sent to hell. Some of the art lore, not as much as I would have liked, but some of it is explained a little bit more. It turns out that Art is essentially a demon, which explains his supernatural abilities. It's kind of a Freddy Krueger in Freddy's Dead situation, where a demon has latched itself on to an evil soul, a serial killer, and that, you know, amalgamation is the juice that makes Art and Vicky these, you know, supernatural beings. So Sienna, you know, kills Vicky, as far as we know. Maybe transfers the demon, some of it into herself in the process. A little bit ambiguous there. There's some explaining to do in the next movie. And Art gets away and gets on a bus. And it's a funny scene where he's all defeated. He's covered in blood. He got his ass kicked, stabbed. He's just beat to hell. He gets on a bus and sees a girl reading a book and is immediately rejuvenated. So total kind of setup for a fourth installment. But ooh, man, the movie was 2 hours, and I'm glad it was shorter than the last one. I think the runtime of the movie is good. Okay, I would prefer an hour and a half movie if I can get one and it makes sense. This movie at 2 hours, I don't really know if there's anything I would have cut from the movie. I liked the runtime for what we got, for the contents of it. Now, why did I not like Terrifier 3 quite as much as I like Terrifier 2? I think, truthfully, I'll have to just see the movie again and it'll start to grow more on me, just like the second one did. And we're off to a good start because I really liked this movie. But I think the second one felt like it was the biggest swing of all the movies so far. It felt the most ambitious. And it was a little flawed in some ways, but that kind of all contributes to why I like the second one. It just felt like a more go for broke, let's really do this thing movie, you know, which is what I didn't really love about it at first. And now, you know, it's what I love about it. So Mr. Bucket Man says, you want to get a bigger crowd. However, this crowd size is perfect for all of us rascals. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Whatever. Yeah, I'm not really sure what you mean, but I think I'm pretty sure I agree with you, you know? All right, guys. So those are my thoughts on the Terrifier franchise. Mike, I'm sorry you missed most of my thoughts on Terrifier 1, 2, and most of 3, but let me just kind of end it with this as far as what I recommend this movie. Yes, if you like what they're selling you, which is a gnarly mean grindhouse kind of throwback slasher film with interesting characters or an interesting villain, you'll like this movie. It's hyper gory. The kills are creative, which feels like it's a weird compliment to give it, obviously, because it's so gross, but you'll like it. Now, if you don't like these kinds of movies, definitely don't watch this one, because you're not gonna. This one is it's the bloodiest of these kinds of movies. So that's my take. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate everybody being here, and I appreciate it so much that we're gonna do a giveaway. Let's get into it. I'm gonna be giving away my favorite Terrifier movie, Terrifier 2, Damien Leone's Terrifier 2. And we're going to be giving this away on Blu-ray, baby. And all you have to do is be the first one to answer this. Which other low-budget horror film featured makeup and VFX from Terrifier creator Damien Leone? And sorry, I meant which other 2024 horror film. I should have put that in there. Which other 2024 horror film also featured makeup and VFX from Terrifier creator Damien Leone? First one to answer that will win this Blu-ray. All you have to do is put the title of the movie. I can feel you guys now on IMDb and Google looking for it. He only did the makeup and VFX on one movie this year. I don't even think he did the makeup and VFX on Terrifier 3, although they were perfect as usual. And I know he was involved because that's his stuff. He loves it. All right, guys, let's go. Who wants to win? Who wants to win? I love it. When the chat goes quiet, it means everybody's looking it up. Who's going to win it? Well, Conway already knows. Said it was a solid movie. I have not seen the movie yet. I almost said the title of it. I haven't seen the movie that we're talking about right now yet. Come on, guys. Who's going to win it? Who's going to win it? Reggie F., thanks for being here, man. Yeah, maybe we will do something on Braden Scan one of these days. That's a good suggestion. Come on, guys. Who's going to win it? This reminds me of the Monster Squad giveaway. No, nice fan. He didn't do the makeup on Wicked. The makeup on Wicked would look better if Damien Leone did it, in my opinion. Come on, guys. No. Which other 2024? There it is. Ty Lee. Woo-hoo-hoo. My man, Ty Lee. You are the winner, my friend. Yes, the answer is Stream, which I think it's about a live stream inside of like an abandoned hotel, and it just turns into like a murder house type situation. Looks awesome. The trailer was pretty cool. So Ty Lee, you are the winner, and let me tell you how you can claim your prize. Now, also, I wanted to say Gutierrez. I wrote down your name. Gutierrez from last week. You were last week's winner. If you're on this stream tonight, Gutierrez, you didn't email me to claim your prize, bud. But Ty Lee, I'm trusting that you will email me. Some people think it's funny to just win and not email me. But here we go. Here's what I'm going to have you do, my man. Get ready to take a screenshot or a picture of your screen or whatever it is that you do, okay? You're going to email me here. That's kierblow@joeblow.com. Now, it's important that you don't spell it wrong, okay? Look, follow the finger. Let's see if we can get the finger in focus. Yeah, okay. KIERGOMES@joeblow.com. Email me there. I'll check my spam. I'll check my inbox. But I want to hear from you so I can send you your movie. My brother, my dude, Ty Lee. Okay? So congratulations, man, and thank you for all the comments tonight. I do love when I see somebody who's frequently either at the live streams or in the comments win a giveaway. So that's really cool, man. I appreciate that. And with that being said, guys, let's plug a little bit of the merch. We're going to plug some merch. You guys can get your Joe Blow t-shirts or coffee mugs at our store, and you can visit our store. You can check underneath this video, probably. You know, it's probably there. Go check these out, guys. If you love movies, you love movie quotes, but you like to be subtle about it and kind of keep them classy and keep them snazzy, then go check out some shirts. And if you pick yourself one up, just get one for me too. That's all I ask. You know, give me one in every size, every color. That'll be fun. Oh, so Ty also didn't see stream. Well, now you'll have Terrifier 2 on physical. You should get stream on physical. And when Terrifier 3 comes out, you better believe we getting that on physical. Maybe we'll give that one away next Halloween. All right, guys. I hope you all have an absolutely fantastic rest of your Friday. Have a good weekend. Go see Terrifier this weekend. If I haven't grossed you out on it too much, I might see it again. But I'm going to go see Smile 2 either tonight or sometime this weekend, and I might talk about it a little bit on next week's stream since we're going to be keeping it spooky and Halloween themed until the end of October, my dudes. All right. I love you all. Ty Lee, make sure you email me so you can claim your prize. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for being here. And please don't forget, like the video and subscribe. And I'm out. I'll see you guys next Friday. Peace.